Hi friends, welcome back to Network Path. In this video, we are going to perform a packet tracer lab on how to configure and verify IP addresses and host names on a router. Let's get started. This is our task number 1. Configure the host names on routers R1 and R3 as illustrated in the topology. So we have these R1 and R3 two routers there that are connected using serial ports S00 and S00 respectively. But in this example, on packet tracer, we are going to use gig ports and IP addresses and subnet mask would remain same. Let's get into the packet tracer and complete the first task. We are in the packet tracer and there is R1 and R3 two routers. R1 and R3 are the names that are there for the visual representation, but their host names are different right now. So our first task is to change their host name. So to change the host name for R1, we need to go into CLI. But first we need to make sure that this router is turned on from this place. Okay. Now go to CLI section and continue with configuration dialog. You have to press or write no here. Now you will be inside the router's CLI. First you need to type enable, and to change the host name you have to get into the configuration mode. So configure terminal, right? To change the host name, simply type host name R1. Now the host name is changed from router to R1, and to save this you need to type exit once, and now you can write WRM, that is write to memory. Now that is saved to your memory, and we did this because your router might accidentally get shut down and after restarting it will lost all its configuration, but if you write it to the memory it will be stored in the non-volatile memory, right? Now let's change the host name for router R3. Get inside the CLI section, configuration dialog, no, we don't need that, press no. Now type enable to change something or change some configuration. Go inside the configuration mode, configure terminal. Now you can change the host name by typing host name R3. If by mistake you type it R2, you'll see R2 is there, but you can change it simply by overriding the previous one by typing host name R3. Now it is R3. Okay. To write, we have to exit once and WRMEM. Now it is saved, and even if you turn off the router and restart it again, your host name will remain R3. Okay. Now let's get to the task number 2. For the task 2, let's configure interfaces with the IP addresses. So we are going to configure gig interfaces. So these are serial interfaces, but the IP addresses and subnet mask would remain same. Let's get into the packet tracer. Let's provide R1 an IP address, and then we'll move to R3. Now we are inside CLI of R1, and if we go at the initial CLI screen, it would look like this. Type configure. If it does not work, try enable. Now type config terminal. To provide IP address to an interface, we have to first choose that interface and then configure the settings related to that interface. So we need to select the gig 0/0 interface. So we'll type interface, and to see what options are there, we can see that there is Ethernet, fast Ethernet, gig Ethernet, and serial. So in the image it was serial, but we will choose gigabit Ethernet. Okay. So write giga, and you can tap and you'll get the complete parameter there. And interface gigabit Ethernet 0/0. Now we have entered into the gigabit 0/0 interface, and now we can provide the IP address. IP address 172.16.1.1, and this is incomplete because we need to provide the subnet mask, and the subnet mask for this would be /26, and we write it as 255.255.255.192. In the next page, I'll provide you a table wherein you can get a subnet mask corresponding to CIDR notations. Now it is not throwing any error. Now we have set the IP address to the interface. Now we can exit out of the interface and again exit. Now we can write it to the memory. Our configurations are saved to the non-volatile memory. Now to see if the configurations are there, you can try to hit some commands and see if the configurations are there, but it will be there in the next task. So let's configure the R3's gig 0/0 interface. Get into the CLI, enable config terminal, choose the interface giga 0/0. We are inside the interface, give IP address 172.16.1.2 will be the IP address for this time because 1 was given to the R1. So 255.255.255.192 would be the subnet mask, and I think we have provided the IP addresses to both the interfaces, and our task 2 is completed. And this is the subnet mask table where you can get the subnet mask corresponding to /26/25 or whatever CIDR notation that you are using, and it is classless actually. So before providing IP addresses, do check from this table so you do not do any mistake, and with practice you will learn all these subnet masks. Our final task is to verify the configurations that we have done and if the IP addresses are working properly or not. Let's get into the packet tracer. So we are inside the R1's CLI and we can see the configurations that are present inside it right now. So type enable and we can see show running config and press enter. And this will not show the entire configurations. Tap space multiple times unless and until you get this prompt. Now you can see the settings or hard-coded configurations that are inside the switch, and the setting that we have configured is here: interface gigabit Ethernet 0/0 and IP addresses 172.16.1.1 and subnet mask is this. And apart from this, hostname R1 is also there, and remaining settings are already inside the switch, router. So let's check this for R3 as well. Okay, type enable and type show running config. We can see hostname R3 and interface gig 0/0. IP address is .2 and subnet is .192. Okay, but to check the settings, this running configurations is not a good way because we are getting a lot of data in front of us. So to minimize that, we can check the interfaces one by one, or we can get a table. So show IP interface, and we can type the interface information like gig 0/0. Right now, the information about the interface will be here. Internet address is this, broadcast address is this, and we will not see the hostname here because hostname is given to the router itself. Now this is again a lot of information, but to get a brief of all the interfaces, we can type show IP interface brief. Now we will get the summary of all the interfaces. That is gig 0/0, gig 0/1, and we can see that this is the IP address. And similarly, we can see in this as well, show IP interface brief, and there we go, .1 address is there. Now we can see that our IP address is configured, but we need to check if they are in the same network and they are able to connect or contact with each other. So we can check it using a ping. Now let's ping. We are inside R1, so we will ping R2's interface. So ping 172.16.1.2. Success rate is 0%, and we need to check what is the problem. So we have configured the IP addresses correctly, as we can see there. Now let's see what is the problem. And if you go a little bit on the right, you can see the protocol is down and the status is administratively down. So this means that our interface is shut down, and that is why it is not able to contact with other interfaces. So to uh, to turn on the interface, we can go inside the interface setting. So before that, let's type configure terminal. Let's go into the gig 00 interface gig 0/0, and to turn on the interface we can write no shut down. Okay, now we have got an syslog message is that gigabit ethernet 0/0 changed state to up. Now the interface is turned on, but there is still one problem, but we can try by pinging. Okay, now let's ping the other interface again. Still the success rate is 0%, and the reason is the other interface, that is R3's interface is shut down as well. We can see here it is administratively down. So to turn it on, type config terminal and get into the interface gig 0/0 and type no shut down, changed state to up. Write this to the memory. Okay, now let's try pinging R1 from this place. Now we can see that lights are green, and before a few minutes you must have noticed that the lights were red, and now we can ping, I guess, 172.16.1.1. I'm typing .1 this time because I am doing this ping from this interface to this interface. Okay, so this has .1 address and this has .2 address. Let's try. Okay, success rate is 80% this time. Now this 80% is because of the ARP resolution. ARP resolution is done for the very first time. The device pings to some other device. Now if we ping this again, this time the success rate would be 100%. And similarly, if we try to ping from R1, let's do that. Let's ping. Okay, the success rate is 100%. Okay, so this is how we can verify how both devices are configured and if they are reachable or not. So thank you so much for watching this video, and if there is any query you can write it down in the comment section. Thank you so much.